Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. I don't know how we did it, but today we have Toru on the show.
Oh, nice to be here.
And he is here to break down his newest single, Glow. Toru, tell us a little bit about the instrumentation.
Well,
What plugins did you use?
so
Tell us what's it about? The people need to know.
I'm not sure which camera to look at.
What's up? This is Toru, music producer based in Mexico City. No, not New Mexico. People have asked me that. Today, I want to talk about Glow, which is a song I just dropped, and it's now available on all streaming platforms. If you haven't already heard the song, I'm going to go ahead and just play it real quick so there's a little bit of context, but also I hope you dig it, and please feel free to go stream it on your favorite platform. All right, so that's the track, and today I think we're just going to talk specifically about this key part that sort of drives the track. So that key part is played on Keyscape. I'm just using their LA custom warm Rhodes sample. So I guess I just want to say a couple things about the chord progression. One is it's super simple and it's really just kind of walking down in whole steps. I think what's kind of cool is that when we go from this B flat here to this A flat down a whole step, that the top note of that chord goes up. So you sort of get this sense of contrary motion a little bit. One part kind of goes down, the other part goes up. And I think that's a small, subtle thing in a very simple chord progression that helps just make it a little bit more interesting. I think something that's really helpful to keep in mind is when you find a chord that you like, that feels like it can be a starting place, for me, sometimes I get caught up trying to think about the entire next chord or series of chords. And I think what can be helpful is, how can I just pick the next note that sounds good in either the top or the bottom? So what's the next bass note that maybe sounds good, or what's the next top note that sounds good? And then try to work within that to find a chord that may work. Or even a part of a chord. You don't need to play so many notes either, you know? There's also an economy of hand movement, I think, that comes into play. So if we've decided, okay, now that next chord is just gonna be a whole step down, and my hands are already in this place from the previous chord, what can I do to move my hands the least? And that's sort of what I mean by like kind of the economy of your movements there. So I'm really almost playing the same chord. I've just moved the bass note and changed the top note. So, but in my opinion, it is sort of those sort of subtle overlapping changes that are really fun to play, really interesting to the ear, and also kind of set you up to make the next movement. If you're interested, here are the chords. There's this B flat minor 7, this A flat sus, this B flat up top, and an F sharp, G flat, depending on what you want to call it, major 7, excuse me, and this B major 7 that's inverted here. All right, so with that, let's just jump into these keys, and I just want to show you how I'm processing them, and we can show you kind of the before and after of how they're kind of being impacted by the processing decisions that were made. So you can see all the way across the bottom, have an EQ, everyone's favorite, the RC20, the Wolf Comp, and some more EQ from FabFilter, Soothe, and Track Spacer. Everything I tried to do was just really subtle because I think, again, even without all of this processing, if I turn it all off, these keys on their own sound pretty good to me. So I rolled off the lows here, you can see, from 100 hertz roughly, and I guess technically 102, and then kind of cutting off some of these low mids here as well, these other lows and low mids. So hopefully that's making space for the kick and the bass as well. So let's listen to it without. let's come back and listen to it with. You hear when I turn that off how much of the lows come back. And also you can see that I boosted up here around, let's see, what is that? Around 4K, pretty broadly. Generally, I think if you're gonna boost, it's more helpful to do it broadly. Next, we have the RC20. And again, like trying to keep it subtle, you can see they have the sad piano preset, and then I just really scaled it back. So it's a 24%. If I were to turn this up to 100, back down to 24. Tiny bit of noise, tiny bit of wobble, distortion, a little bit of space, and they're magnetic. So it's really just trying to give it a little bit of movement and color. And then some compression to just try to keep it consistent as it's playing through the progression. Again, subtle, subtle, subtle. And then this right here, both the Fab filter and the Soothe, they're sort of about just cleaning it up. The Rhodes has some resonant frequencies, and you could argue that maybe it would have been nice to put this before the compressor so that those frequencies weren't influencing the way the compressor responds. So without it, with it, so next we have Soothe, and it's a really cool plugin that helps you clean things up. It can be a little CPU intensive, so I try to be careful with it. So again, just really trying to be conscious of the lows and low mids that are gonna exist in this Rhodes and potentially conflict and get in the way and mask the kick and or bass, which I also wanna make sure exist in this track. And so you can see it here working like, it's like a dynamic EQ, I guess is kind of how I would describe it. It's really just when certain frequencies come up in this particular area, it's gonna try to suppress them or push them down a little bit. All right, so next up we have this track spacer plugin. And this is a really cool plugin because basically what it does is allow you to sidechain a track into the track of interest and have that track of interest move out of the way anytime those two instruments are playing at the same time and occupying the same space in the frequency spectrum. So it's sort of like the tie goes to the runner, and the runner in this case is the sidechain track. My sidechain is the bass. So anytime the bass and the Rhodes run into each other, the bass is gonna move out of the way, but only in the places where they occupy the same parts of the frequency spectrum. So it's a really cool plugin. So here it is without. With. Last but not least, just have a little bit of sidechaining going on with the drums. So if I play that without and with, you'll hear that this keys, when I turn it on, you'll hear that the keys will start to duck out of the way according to the drums. So it will sound a little strange on its own, but again, what's important is how it sounds in context with the mix. So here it is without the sidechain. So keep in mind, I know that I'm showing you all of the adjustments and plugins on and off, but all of these decisions were made in context while the other instruments were playing. So with that in mind, we're gonna listen to everything at once in context, once with the plugins off on the Rhodes and once with all of the plugins on. So that's everything about the Rhodes part in Glow. So I hope that this maybe even give you some ideas for how you can write chord progressions, how you can use plugins. A reminder that the song is out now, streaming on all platforms. Please go ahead and check it out. And if you've already heard it, why not just go ahead and run it again and again. This has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. Peace.